version. Okay, John, which one do you use? GitHub. Cool. What do you use? GitHub. I use GitHub. Bob, what do you use? What version control system do you use?
I didn't catch that.
Not everyone does. That's the thing. But if everyone knows, if everyone's using a version control system, there's not much point in this presentation. Scott?
Yeah,
Scott Holmesby. Well, yeah, Scott on the Linden, yes. Well, so Scott definitely does. He uses Git, yes.
Well, I'm not using version control system, so there you are. I'm still using an old-fashioned thing where I do comparisons between the files using a Scooter product, and that seems to work. It sort of works, but it'd be nice to be able to. I'm looking at Git, but you know what it's like. 50 million other things come up, and you don't have time to spend. So here it is. I'm here. I'm all ears.
Fair enough. Except I have come across many people who, especially doctors who use zipped files, yeah. So that's what this is about. So you all know the version control system is? You all know what it is? Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so we can pretty much skip that then, I suppose. And what you can do, I'll show. Well, like I say, it's with a focus with Git, but it's also in general. So, seeing as pretty much everyone again uses a version control system, this, like I say, this step one is not really all that necessary. But compared to zip files, you do have a backup, and you can revert. You can compare files. So you know you have an external backup. You can always revert to an earlier version. You can also compare, but it's not as paper to cloud. And the reason I say that is because someone who hosts something on the cloud is going to make sure that with all the thousands of developers and the millions of developers on there, there will be deep if they're lost stuff. So they need to make sure. You come through back like okay. I shall silence this microphone. Silence.
Were you guys getting the audio as a bit interneted before, or was it just me listening through my phone?
No, it's not the best audio. I can hear it my end. I can hear you quite clearly, and Paul.
You can hear me?
Yeah, but Peter, there seems to be an echo or something in your in your discussion when you get it.
Yeah, I think we're going to use my phone as our microphone, and we'll try to remember to hand it around between people if we're speaking in here, and hopefully that will be good. But yell if because I've been in plenty of meetings with bad audio quality for the online people, and we want to try and avoid that as much as we can.
Yep.
So yeah, if you're not getting it, yell.
Yep. Pete, you're coming through quite clear. Yep.
There we go. So I'm audible, I presume. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Peter, you're perfect now, mate.
Can we just switch this? This needs to go completely silent because this is.
Doesn't seem to do it.
And that's the reason why. Where's the voice?
Yeah.
Doesn't want to go down below, I think.
Shut.
Yeah, I don't know how to. Unless we just do all the speakers through this as well.
Just by way of feedback, I do a lot of meetings around a table, and I use one of these Bose little things. You know, you can connect it up to Bluetooth, and sits in the middle of the table, and we all talk to it, and we can all hear it. So, you know, if this becomes a future thing, that might be worth investing
Les
in.
is talking at the moment and we can't hear him. Yeah, there we go. The audio is off. Sorry about this, guys, but yeah, try now. Sorry, were you speaking, Les, just then?
Yeah, I was saying that I do a lot of meetings with you know, with various people around a table, and I use one of these gadgets, you know, one of these little Bose things. We stick it in the middle of the table, up a bit high, and everybody gets to hear and everybody gets to speak, and it all sort of works pretty good. You know, you couldn't do it in a big room, but a table of about 6 people, easy peasy.
We have one of these here, but I don't think it's connected. So I think it's designed for this. Also,
These are better to get, easier to carry.
this was working now. If this is working, we'll just pause there.
No, this is good. We can hear you not clearly, Peter.
Can I just say, we'll arrange an in-person for next month as well. I will notify people early, and I'll get here an hour beforehand to sort out the audio visual stuff, all right? On my last vestiges of any honor I may retain.
So, yeah. And of course, when you're comparing difference, but like I said, there's not much point in talking about zip files other than for possibly LEDs. So the thing here is it's not easy to compare. You've got to unzip the two different versions, and you do your beyond compare and all the rest of it. And consolidating differences between team members can be an absolute pain. Tracking branches can also be a pain, and it takes up a crap load of space on your external hard drive.
Yeah. You don't have to spend too much time. I know what I'm doing wrong.
Sorry, what?
Oh, sorry.
When you take the version of you want to do work on that version.
Yeah.
And then eventually otherwise you'll work on someone else also wants to work on.
Yeah.
So you save your one first, but then he could save it to an older version.
It still becomes quite, yeah, but
can you not do record with that?
No, I'm saying using zip files, just comparing it, because the reason I put this is because I knew, like, you guys aren't actually doing that, but I'm just sort of, I put that in last night because I know that there are several people in the ADUG club who still do zip files as compared to, but that is in a sense of, it's a very crude, simple version control system. But there are lots of options. These are the active ones. And you can see there are lots of them. Clear case looks familiar. No, clear case. There are there's a stack load here of different version control softwares out there that you can choose from. These are the active ones. There's Git, for example, Mercurial. I've tried that before, yeah. And then Subversion, I used to use a lot.
Yes.
Synergy I used at Motorola, and they made a total mess of their source code, which I read last night was the reason why Motorola died, is because they made a total mess of their version control system, and that was pretty obvious when I was working there. So there are many, and there are a whole bunch of them that are obsolete as well. So you can see that there. So Git is certainly not the only option, but it is free and it is pretty comprehensive.
And I read that Microsoft paid in days maybe $15 billion to acquire
To buy Git, Microsoft wanted to buy Git,
They bought it for about 8 years ago, something like that.
right?
Well, then it was,
So
like 8 million American.
8 million
Put it in
American.
today's money in Aussie dollars. It's
Yeah.
15 million. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And, got, 100 million, programmers.
So if Microsoft bought Git, I wonder if it what Git itself or like something like GitHub or something like that, because I can imagine that they'd want to use that as source material for their AIs or something like that.
They bought GitHub.
Sorry, they bought GitHub.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because then they could use all that source code for training their AIs. Yes, privacy concerns. Anyway, features, you can easily add lots more changes, and that's what you should be doing. You should be doing lots of small changes with comments. So if I'll show here, so I use Fork personally. Find Fork to be very good. So Git is a command line tool, strictly speaking. That's all it is. It's all command line, and all these Git UIs, they are, from what I understand, they actually run Git in the background. They actually, from what my understanding is that they create Git commands that they run on command line in the background. Or more likely, they'll probably talk to Git APIs to do the job. It's actually a very good example of having a UI separate from the business layer being Git, and this being, and this here being the actual UI. Now, yeah, you can then quite quickly see, so if we've got a BAT library, you probably are familiar with BAT library. I published that some years ago, but I haven't done anything with it for about 3 years. What you can do here, you can see all the files. So this here is the state of like 14th of December 2020. These are all the files in the state they were in at that time, and this is all held locally. So I can jump to this version here. I'll just go and stash these. I'll explain that later perhaps, but while demoing, okay, so stash that, cool. I don't quite remember what I was doing, but let's say, so the code right now is here. That's where we're at right now. That's a current version on my hard drive. So if I'd open this project group in Delphi, so I can show you here. There it is. If I go and open this project group in Delphi, then I will get this state. I can go and change that state. So rather than unzipping and all that jazz, I might go here and go, you know what? I want to see what is happening when I was doing these drop-down controls. Double click, and we've now changed them. That's a little bit quicker than unzipping files. It's just done. Everything's been changed. That is now the state of the project is what it was on 4th of July in 2021.
So, having done that,
Yes.
no, sorry, if you were doing that and having stat, if it would, so it's going to completely change the directory structure, right?
It'll change the files, and if it actually directly changes, then it'll update those as well.
It'll warn you if it was going to destroy anything.
It does, but I figured it's just easier right now, just stash them and I'll come back later. But yeah, so it will warn you as best it can. And sometimes there are conflicts, and you've got to fix those conflicts up. But because I don't know what I was doing, I think it was 2.5 years ago, a year and a half ago, I was working on that last. I have no idea what I was doing. So I'm just stashing them for safety. And then, because I would not fix it. No.
I also want to know what stash particularly does.
Okay. So
Whenever.
yeah, okay. So now we're at the state here. So I'm just going to switch to this one here. So I've now switched again. It just changed, so it is now the directories, the file changes have been made. Now, what were the changes I made from this version here? And you see no dots until we get to this version. What were the changes I made? I can just click here and I can see the changes immediately. I can see those are all the changes I made. I add this get.exe directory, which is a convenience function.
So the differential changes, but
Just the differential changes. And then the 4th of July, about a half a year later, then I made some other changes. And this is not the way you're supposed to use it. This is actually a good example how what you shouldn't do. I have I basically deleted that code and replaced it with this line here. The reason this existed is because when I wrote it, this class did not exist. Embarcadero later made a class that does exactly this, and they call it T-singleton implementation. And so I figured, well, now it exists. There's no point in having a duplicate. So I deleted that and replaced it with just it's the same name, it's just referring to that. But now what I've also done in this change is I've added a new class. So there are actually two changes in this one commit, naughty. And the reason for that is because you want to have quite small atomic changes. I'll get to that later, but the point is I can see all the differences. Here there are actually, I've added bats off. So made just a comment change there, so that's okay. But added a new functionality here and then added a demo and unit tests to go with this context here, with this new context library bit I added here, this unit. And
what's the significance of the colors that you make?
So green is you've added something. Red is you've removed something. Now, if you've changed something, like then that means it's green and yellow. Now, the green and red combined become yellow, it's changed. Sometimes when you move things, it makes them purple, as you can find some examples of that. And I'm just going through. So again, you can see there's no need to do any, what's we call it, any unzipping, anything like that, because it's all there. What I also can do, for example, you see this 4.2 tag here? I might want to have a summary of all the changes I made since 4.1. So I select those two and I can get a summary of the changes. Bam, right there. So that is this change, this change, this change, all the way up from there to there. So there are all these features you can do to quite easily, to quite quickly and easily see what you've done. Yes.
So was that the same as before, like picking 2 points and getting?
Yep, I pick 2 points and then I can see, or if I just pick this 1 point, I see the changes from the previous one to this one. That's the only thing I've changed there. But if I select that one and one other one, I get to see the difference. The green is to add things. We've added files. Yeah. But remember, this is, so that's probably quite standard, but there are lots of different user interfaces. So, yeah, I'll get to that in a moment then. But also things, for example, if you have a look here, I've made this branch here called drop-down controls, and it is, and I've branched it off version 4.0. I've tagged this 4.0. And maybe these changes are good. Maybe I want them. But it's based on version 4.0. Maybe I should base them on the latest version. So what I can do is I can go into drop-down controls, and then I can say, you know what? I want to rebase it on version 4.2. So I can rebase it. And then there may be conflicts, and I will have to fix up those conflicts before it works again. But that's fine. That's kind of what you expect when you have have suddenly got all these other changes from version 4.0 to 4.2. There are all these changes. I'd expect there to be some sort of conflict. So there's a lot you can do when it comes to modifying. Oh, sorry. Yes, Les.
Yeah,
You have your hand up.
mine's, I've got two questions.
Yes.
One of them is, what's the name of this product?
Well, we'll get to the user interfaces later because there are
Okay.
lots of user interfaces you can choose amongst, and you choose which one suits you.
Okay.
But I'm using Fork. This one here, it's just called Fork. Fork, as in what you eat with, a fork.
Yeah.
Like branching. But we'll get to that later because there are, as I say, lots of options.
Okay. My second question is, are you saying that you should do only one commit at a time so that you keep it quite granular? Don't try and
Yes.
do multiple
Yes.
things? Okay.
Yes. So another thing you can do, for example, is something I discovered yesterday, added context. Notice here that this BATSOC context, that's been added. This file here looks suspiciously like inside drop-down controls, I've got added context and test context. Look at that. Doesn't that look suspiciously similar in what it should be doing? So what I've probably done is in one of these branches, either drop-down controls or in the master branch, I have developed the context unit and that library. And then in the other one, I thought, yeah, I kind of need that. So I've gone and cherry-picked that particular version, that particular check-in and go, yep, I want that and I want that to be incorporated into this branch. So I can pull those in. Now, if there were other changes that you had done, that I had done inside that commit where I've committed the new context, it's going to be a pain for me to sift out only the bits that I need. But if it's granular, I just go and pick the ones that I want and I'm done. So that's an example of why granular is always better. And then, yeah, and it's also easy. Yes? You have a question?
Depends where you're going. I wanted to distinguish, because I've asked people this before, there's online, so I know nothing.
Yeah.
You said before, like, oh, if we're using Git, you wouldn't have anything to talk about. But we're beginners, right? So we want to hear all about it. I know what a merge is.
Yeah.
And I have heard the word rebase.
Okay.
You told me about it, right? On the phone. So it feels like rebase is a bit like shifting up.
Yes. So
merge is coming into the top, right?
You know what? I can do this here. I don't particularly care. That's fine. Okay.
So you are in version 1.
Yeah.
And you want to rebase something in version we're telling you, like there's a lot of stuff up here with so what's the about to bring that down?
Okay, so you see here, drop-down controls here is based off an old version of the PT of the BAT library. You see that this branch here. Branch is out here, and it's not complete, but it's branch. And let's say I want to do this. I did too much at once, so obviously I did some bad programming, some not such clever stuff. But let's say there's work here that's really good, and I actually want that. But I based it off an old version of that library. What if I want to update it and actually base it off the latest version of that library, version 4.2? So notice how this branch is, you see that, 4.0? And I want to base it off 4.2. Does that make sense? So if I go here and I say rebase, and I'm going to do this now. Yeah, sure. There may be conflicts, and I'm fine with that. So, okay, there are conflicts. So now I've got to go and resolve those conflicts. It'll tell me what those conflicts are. So let's have a look at this. Let's merge these in beyond compare and see. And I'm probably going to stop this up because, let's say, I haven't actually done this for ages. So I go here and sorry, there's this, there's a bit of zoom in the way. I can't see. I close that and I hope that that's not going to cause a problem. So next conflict. So I go to conflict here, and it'll actually show me where there is a conflict, and it looks like, yeah, I probably want to have try, obtain, and all the rest of it. So I'll probably want to have this side here. I'm just going to do the following, all right? Because I don't know what I'm dealing with anyway. I'll want 4.2. So I can go and choose that and say, yeah, okay, we'll just go with that. And this one here, yeah, we'll go with 4.2. And then we can continue the rebase, and so there are more conflicts. And when you've dealt with all those conflicts, and it's not showing now because there are too many of them, I can't be bothered. I'll abort this, so we'll just not go ahead with the rebase. So I'll just abort it, but I'll find maybe some other one where I can do.
Just rebase at one commit.
Yeah, I'm looking at maybe. See that's based off there. Wondering if I have flyers. I just did some work here. I could have no. Yeah. Okay. So
I didn't want to send your presentation out sequence for you.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I will. I just don't have any good little examples right here, right now. We can create them later, and we can mess with them later, because the idea was we'll go and create a new repository that we can all mess with anyway. So we can do that later. So I'll just move on for now, because I don't have any good ones right there right now. But also the other thing is you can do code reviews, which is good for teamwork. You can consolidate, so you can pull the work of different developers together quite easily. When you have a good set of processes in place, a good set of rules as to who does what when. The last place I worked, Immersive Technologies, had some 80 or so developers working on the same code base. So it was really imperative that everyone follow these rules quite well. Yeah. So, but when you do that, you can have a pretty damn good, like, large team working on the same code base without any major conflicts, or very few conflicts, at least, considering the number of people. And the conflicts that tend to be quite easily fixed, because they tend to be quite localized and small. And the idea is always, as I said, tortoise, not hare. So take many small steps, and you'll actually get there faster than if you try to make big jumps generally. And it ends up feeling more like a steamroller type of effect once you get a good rhythm going, a good cadence. You sort of can see each week the code is improving. It goes going forwards at a very slow but very steady pace, and it becomes very trustworthy that you're actually going forwards.
Is it correct that the way that Git stores commits, it's kind of like a blockchain sort of thing? You can't. I don't.
All I know is that it doesn't store deltas. It stores, from what I understand, it's just store the full repository. As it.
But you can't really lose data, can you? Once it's in there.
It's very hard to lose data, but foolish people can be very successful at doing foolish things. All right. But it is hard. You have to be really. Yeah.
Well, people are a little bit sleepy too.
So, I mean, yeah, you have other benefits. I know I showed here how you can have mergers. I didn't quite show it, but you can see here there's a branch, and then we merge that branch, and you can quite easily see that from here we made this change, this change, this change, this change, and then merged them in. So the summary of these changes is the same as what went in there, because that is all these changes merged into that branch was called context, surprise, surprise, and they were all merged into this drop-down branch. And so that's what this is showing here. There are all these other things you can do.
Go back to that form. One more. So at the point of that added demo context, the one line down,
We made this
at that point, there are three sequences of coding that exist simultaneously, right?
Correct. There are three branches that exist simultaneously. There's the master, there's a drop-down control. That's the master one there. You see master. And then this yellow one here is called drop-down controls. And then there was one called context. That is correct.
And all of that exists in the one directory structure. It can be summoned into existence at the click of a mouse. Right?
Yeah, that's right. So this here helps you keep track of the difference. This is where a sort of hidden folder that Git uses in this project directory to do that sort of thing. Yes, to sort of keep those changes locally somehow. I don't quite know, because it's a pretty damn small directory. So I don't know how Git works internally, and I don't particularly care as long as I understand
I must
how it works.
because I made the assumption that everything that was required to recreate everything else was in that Git directory. I never really looked to see what size it was. So maybe if you came from outside and completely deleted a directory or something, you could cause some mayhem.
No,
Can it just be recreated?
it can be recreated.
Wow, okay.
And then yeah, so I was showing here. So I just took this page because it's a good example. So you can do things like history. So for example, if I pick something like bats up classes, there you go. That's a core one that's existed for years, longer than this repository. And I can do something like a history, and I can see them. So there's another nice thing. You know, a bug began at a certain time. It was there at a certain time, but it wasn't there earlier. When did this bug come in? And you can then go look at the dates and you go, oh yeah, it happened sometime in early 2021. Oh, that might be, oh, it could be here. It could be here. And you can start looking at potential culprits, which check-in it was that did it. Oh, it could be this one. What else was I doing at that time? These are all the different things that I checked in this change. So I can start narrowing down when the bug was introduced. It's a very handy feature.
John and I were both wondering what.
Right. So if you can see here, we're starting at line 47 and we're going down to 64 because it's only highlighting what the changes are. It's not showing the entire file. It's only showing where the file is and then a few lines before and after. Then there's a break. I don't tend to bother with those. I just look at the file numbers, at the line numbers. Then it skips a whole bunch of numbers from 64 to 140. And then we have like just a 3 lines, and then we jump into all the changes, and then once we're done with that, then we have another 3 lines, and then there's another break. So basically, these are just breaks. I'm pretty sure what you can do is you can say, so increase the number of visible lines, or show the entire file, for example. So it just saves you from having to do this scrolly stuff. It just shows you straight away just the changes. So rather than showing all this other stuff that hasn't changed, we do this and we go, yeah, skip that. I just want to see what has changed. So that's all it is. All right. And then, yeah, and you can also do something called blame, which is actually sounds quite mean, but it isn't actually. So you can see each line when it was introduced or last changed and who did it and when it was, which can be really handy if you're in a team and you're trying to understand what's going on in a particular line. And you can then go and find the original author of that. And you can also, as same as with the versions, find out what other changes happened at the same time. So you can get more and more context. And if that developer is still working, there hasn't left, because often the developers have left, trust me. But say the developer is still there, you can pick their brains and they might remember what they were doing about 2.5 years ago. Which is more information that can help you understand what was going on at the time. So, oh, Les, did you have more questions?
Yeah, the background colors that are there, do they represent the incremental changes of each one of those stages, or are
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, so red here, you can see in the original version, as in the version just before then, this one here, these lines existed. Do you see that? 46 down to 52, and there were all these lines here. And then in this version that we're actually looking at, they're not there anymore, and they've been replaced with these ones. So the red means deleted.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
The green
right.
means added, and then you combine those, and that's a change. That's an edit, effectively.
And these are default colors, which you kind of get onto when.
That's what Fork uses, and I'd say it's probably what most of them use.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think maybe for changes, some might use blue, some might use yellow.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So just showing here. So there are many different things. You can see who's done the most check-ins, not that that's very important. And you can do, like I said before, mergers. You can get help on how to merge them properly. I'm thinking maybe this one's cleaner than Beyond Compare, actually. But you can actually choose to use other file comparison tools. And really the only one I've ever seen anyone use other than is Beyond Compare, the only external one. Yeah, I've never seen anyone actually use it in the version control systems. Yes. Sorry?
It was scrolling through slides when you just said.
Yeah. Yeah, no, oh, that was just the sort of fork advertisement page, but the fork advertisement page shows a nice set of features that are good for the talk. The potential downsides, it can get messy if you have poor processes in a large team. If you don't have a large team, it's pretty easy to keep it tidy. And if you have good processes, it's pretty easy to get it tidy. Large files can sometimes be a problem. I remember when I was using Subversion, I would sometimes check in large files and the thing would take freaking ages to upload a file because Australian internet. And then, yeah, that can be a problem. And Git will just outright refuse, just say, no, that's too big, not doing that, unless you have a Git plugin, which allows large files. Now, when you have a good version control system and your nice central server, a central repository, then you have another few benefits, such as a reliable backup. Like the cloud backup is much more reliable because an external hard drive can get lost, worn out, smashed. You know, there are all sorts of things that can happen to it. Whereas a cloud backup, there is so much invested in ensuring that no one loses their data, that it is on the whole a much safer alternative. But then you get big companies such as, again, Immersive, that don't want to risk anyone else getting at their software, at their source code. So they have their own local server and then have their own nightly backups of that, so that it's all very much protected within the company. And it allows for larger teams because you have that central repository that everyone works towards. So it makes easy. Different people are working with different files and sometimes the same files. But by having good processes in a central repository, we can deal with those conflicts in a nice, orderly manner. Also, a nice thing with a central repository, especially if you have your own repository, is you can set up automation such as nightly builds and nightly tests, unit tests and system tests. You can set them up so that in the morning you turn up and you find that, oh, the build broke. Someone broke the build yesterday. Let's go find out what where the bug is. Fix it now. Well, it's not that easy because you need to find out which change it was, and why and all the rest of it. So, but that way you can make sure that you can get your project, the bugs found, because each person may have made changes that in their own don't break the build. But when you combine them, there may be a behavioral conflict, even though you're not having, so something that you do, so something that you've done and something that I've done, each might work on their own, but combined may cause a problem. For example, and with a nightly build, it tries to build it and says, yeah, that's not going to work. Or maybe it builds nicely, but then the tests fail. And then we know.
If this button turns blue, turn this button yellow.
Yes.
The other guy, if this button turns yellow,
Blue, yeah.
turn this one green.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's, yeah, precisely. And I say show now. Well, I've been showing a bit throughout, so I won't bother with that now because I've just done that. So how to set up a Git repository? As I said, the focus here will be Git. Well, first of all, we install Git. Let's open these. So here you have a couple of options. Here is Git proper.
To back up the repository, it's just that tree structure, right?
It's
From your repo down.
with Git, it's a repository is a repository. Where it is actually secondary. So a repository on a central server is no different from in principle to a repository on your local computer.
So I mean, to back up a local repo, if you want to just keep it somewhere else as well as the cloud. It's that directory structure, right? Start at the top and save all of those, everything.
Well, you would just, yeah, you would, oh, I see. I think I see what you're saying now. So for example, if we were to back up that library, let's say that's the one that we're working on. So we can see here, open the File Explorer. This is the back library folder here. Right? This is it here, and you can see all the folders and the files inside here. And yeah, we just back up that folder, and that includes the
And if I took that folder and put it on a new laptop, completely different laptop,
it should work.
Install Git, install Fork, you're ready to go.
My understanding is it should work just fine.
We've not actually created a repository. It seems a copy or something that goes on my laptop under the directory that I name repository. So, okay, I've got a DevDoc.
Yeah.
And it makes a repository, and under DevDoc, so you've got this thing called .github.
Yeah, or .git in this case, but yeah, there. That's right. Now, yes, you could do these folder copies, but don't.
No, I'm
just don't clone them instead.
So where's my data actually saved? Is it saved both on my local drive and also in the cloud?
I actually don't know the proper implementation. Scott might be able to enlighten you on that, but I don't know how Git is implemented. I just know how to use it.
I just presume it has to be in the cloud.
Not necessarily, no, because your repository is its own. You could. It's not like Subversion where you have so SVN or Subversion. I had a Mac Mini server at home that ran a Subversion server. And then I used Tortoise SVN, which was bloody fantastic at the time. And my laptop with Tortoise SVN, that was a client, and it would talk to the server, get the files out, check the files out. And with SVN, when you check a file out, you lock it. So no one else can use that file because I've got dibs on that file right now. So that way there won't be any conflicts. When I finished my changes and I check them back in, then I relinquish that lock and I've updated the file. And now that I've done that, other people can go and check it out. That way there are no conflicts. It's a very nice system. But there you have a central server that keeps track of all of that. With Git, you don't have a central server. It's designed specifically for free open source software. And if someone has made a library, if someone else clones that and makes their own library and makes it and adds some U-Boot awesome functions, which is the best library to use? Which is the new primary library? And the answer is neither of them, both of them. It just depends on which one you prefer, which one you want. So a Git repository on your computer is no less a server than the Git repository on say GitHub. They're just as much, they're the same kind of thing. When you synchronize them, they contain the same information. They're essentially the same. Yeah. Because when you clone, you're basically making a backup, but you're doing it within the Git rules. So you actually don't miss it.
What am I actually doing? Like version. What's the purpose of having the local version?
The purpose of having the local version is that you have the files locally on your computer. Delphi can talk to them directly. You're not going over the internet. Everything's local.
Okay. Yeah.
So, for example, let's switch that around. Let's say you are working to the server and they are nicely synchronized, and the server dies or the internet dies.
Yeah.
Well, what you've got on your computer is everything. So what if you've lost the one on the you've lost that the GitHub's died?
Yeah, so
But what you have is everything.
The internet starts, I'm saving to my local server, and then the internet comes up again. So I presume it automatically knows that what's up there is not the same as what's there. So it sorts it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
So yes, correct glasses. I've got two different glasses for different distances. I'm getting old. Okay, so and I don't remember. I think if you install a client, it'll install the latest version of a client. It'll also install the latest version of Git as well. It probably depends on the client you're using, like the sort of the Git UI, not client, the Git user interface. And talking about user interfaces, we were talking about that before. There are a few options you can choose from. That's for this sort of report. So GUI clients, GitHub desktop. This one here is the default GitHub one. Look, I Googled for different GitHub clients. So GitHub desktop. Now, I have been told by various employers that my business layer, my software architecture is great and fantastic, and but my user interfaces are horrible. That is horrible even by my standards. I cannot for the life of me figure out GitHub desktop. It's just the user interface is atrocious. SourceTree I used to use, and I was using it when I was working with Scott, and there was a corruption on my previous laptop. And that corruption meant that I struggled to clone Scott's repository. It took me was it a week or two to get the bloody thing working? And I thought, what's wrong with me? And I'm sure Scott had a much lower opinion of me after that. But then I worked for the company in Sweden, and it took another 2 weeks there to clone their repository. And I figured, it's not me. It's not there is something else going on, and I uninstall source tree. And so what it does is it says, oh, you have to choose some security or encryption or whatever it is. And I said, I don't care. Just pick a good one. The weak point is the user, not if you have a good, strong encryption, who cares? And the others don't care. And so I must have made some mistake and put some corruption in there. And that would have probably been in a hidden registry key because I removed everything that had to do with source tree and Git, reinstalled, tried this a few times, and it just wouldn't work until eventually I figured, what if I try making a VM and then installing source tree, a virtual machine? And I installed the source tree in that virtual machine. Sweet, it just worked. So my advice is stay away from source tree in case you get any screw ups like that, because it's a freaking pain.
Zero understanding.
Yeah. I mean, look, once you get it working, it's fine. It is actually a nice user interface, but it's just, there is that risk there that it's gonna corrupt. So I ruined my reputation, I believe, with 2 clients, or because of source tree. So once I've used some other clients that don't ask these encryption questions, no problems. I have no problems at all.
So what's source tree itself?
Source tree is just a user interface that sort of does so you don't need to learn all the command line stuff. It's like fork. Fork is just one out of many. And when I say one out of many, I mean one out of many. So yeah, GitHub, source tree, Tortoise Git. That looks, I liked Tortoise SVN. Haven't tried Tortoise Git extensions. Those are really probably the best Delphi developer I've ever worked with. Was certainly in Perth, but probably also including Sweden as well, or one of the very top. He was a big fan of Git Kraken. Remember the other day I was saying the one with the octopus icon? Kraken, that's the one. So he really liked this one. But you just have a look. I mean, there are lots of, just look at these. I mean, I don't know how many there are, but the list is going on and on and on and on, right? So you have options.
So you got the
Personally, yeah, that's the one I use, but you might like a different one. All right. Now,
you have the villas, yeah. A recommendation from someone that uses the light set one. It's got to be good though.
yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Now, what I'd like to do is to create. Oh, these guys are busy. You don't need to use my suggestions. Is what I'm suggesting, which means you wouldn't. It means you would, because I'm not suggesting you use my suggestions. Oh shit. Okay. So shall we have a look at creating a repository on GitHub? What that looks like.
It's easier.
Did any break or anything? Or?
No, I'm alright. For now. My voice is actually it's breaking a bit. No, no.
Can you bring the bit branch?
Yeah, we'll do that soon. We'll create a repository. Maybe Scott can actually clone us, and then we can just mess with this. So maybe some water or something like that if you.
I did just that.
Yes. Yes. I think I mean if you're going to go and go and get some drinks and then I'm like,
Retrospectively, yes.
well, I figured I wasn't going to have to get up just for me. So.
Did I tell you about prioritizing yourself?
All right. So let's have a look. Let's just go home. So I use GitHub because it's free and I can make lots of them, and I've got a bunch of different projects on here. I've got my timesheets here, and testing Git, and well, I don't think I need that anymore. But let's create a new one, and suppose maybe Paul would like to see this. Okay, of course, yeah, I see, it does that.
Okay.
So you need to have a GitHub account, obviously. And then when you go and create a new, and then what you do actually, before we do that, is you sort of create a sort of business name. So you can see a Batsoft Games. Someone had taken Batsoft, which is a real pain. So then I made Batsoft Games, Batsoft other things as well. I can't remember what they all were. Because I said Batsoft Delphi or something like that as well, so that I could put the projects within there and keep them tidy. Yeah, so you have, I think they call them a business or something like that. I can't remember exactly. Your organizations, some organizations are here. So you have to see then, once you have your GitHub account, you then create an organization. Thank you. And then based on that organization, so if we look at ADUG Perth, for example, as an organization, something we made about 3 years ago, there are 2 repositories here within the ADUG Perth organization. And we can go and create a new one. So I'm going to make a Git demo or something like that. So I will use ADUG Perth. You see, I've got these other ones I can choose from, but I'm going to go this one here. Let's call it Git demo. So that's available. We give it a description, perhaps optional, but to play with when we're demoing it. All right, and we can make it public or private. Now let's make this one public because we want anyone in ADUG to be able to access it. And then what we have here is a git ignore.
Is this, you're creating it locally, is that correct?
No, I'm creating this on GitHub.
Okay, because private and public, they wouldn't apply on your local system, is that correct?
No, because they're just on your system.
Right.
So private, what that means is that you can't see it unless you're allowed specific access to it. Public means anyone can clone it. It's just visible to the world. So git ignore here is actually very, very useful. And you'll see here, there's a nice filter just for us, Delphi. And what that does is if you have a look, that library is a Delphi one, the rest are all sort of C# or that sort of thing. If you open it up here, you can see there is this git ignore file here. And what it does is it tells Git what file types to ignore. We don't want to see all the DCUs and the other object files like the libs and .os. And we don't care about the ones in the history directories and the recovery directories and the temp files or whatever. We don't want those. We don't want to clutter our repository with that. So we have a git ignore, and this is pre-populated for different languages. And so we've chosen Delphi, so that's the one we'll get. Choose a license, there is no donationware license, unfortunately, which is what I'd like for some of my libraries. But there's the no license, it's the unlicensed. Unlicensed, there we go, the unlicensed. We're not licensing, there's no such thing as a license here. And we create the repository. Bam, there it is. There's our repository. There isn't much to it at the moment because we haven't added many files. Git ignore and there's a license. Those are 2 files that exist. So to clone this locally, we go into, for example, our client here. It's just easier. And well, actually, no, we don't. First of all, we go to here. So this here, you can see ADUG Perth, github.com. See this address here, ADUG Perth. That's the organization that contains this repository. And the repository is called Git demo. right? So if we go to look at the organizations there, and we go to ADUG Perth, this is a page that we were on before. We had ebooks and symposium. We now also have this Git demo one as well. So this is a nice tidy way to easily find and separate your different repositories. Now, we want this on our local computer, so we can start developing it. So we drop down here and we look at, see this here? That there is exactly what we need to clone. So we copy that URL, done. We could also open a GitHub desktop and stuff, but I'm using fork, so that option doesn't exist here. So I go to fork and I say, yep, I want to clone a repository and it needs a path. Well, guess what? That path is in the, I just copied it, what you call the clipboard, right? So it goes, yep, that's in clipboard, that looks right, that looks good. And this is where I normally put them. So if I just show you this here, will that show? Yeah. So you can see here how I've got in dev, Batsoft, I've got all these other repositories and well, they're not all repositories, but my different projects anyway. So that's a good place to put them. In fact, I don't want it there. I want it inside ADUG. So if I go ADUG and I go here, and this is a better place to put it, and I'm going to call it Git demo. So copy this here, so put it here instead. Bam. So okay, there's Git ADUG. So when I can do clone, it's cloning, done. It's very straightforward to clone, which is what really got me with SourceTree. So now we have that. Where is it? ADUG, what do I call it? Git demo. There it is. Git demo. There it is. Okay. And now we can start developing in there. So how about we do that? I'm going to open up a VM. Shall I do that? Shall we just create a project in here, or should we just create some dummy text files or a hello world Delphi project? Which would you prefer? A real one? Okay. That means I need to fire up my VM.
Oh, I see. You said VM and I was thinking IDE.
Ah, right, yeah. It just takes a little while, so just that's okay. It probably gives you a nice break from my voice. Oops.
There was a message on the ADUG forum that maybe some people have seen. Someone posted a thing called PASFMT, an opinionated source code formatter that I think they've been working on for a while. And people have discussed it a bit on Delphi Praxis and a little bit on the ADUG forum. But it's written in Rust, interestingly. So one of my background projects will be to try and understand a little bit about the program, like try and like describe it to a 5-year-old sort of thing.
I just got a text message. There was a Delphi thing on it's on 4th of March, 14th of March, Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning, with Malcolm Groves and Ian Barker talking about Red Studio 12.3.
I completely forgot about it. Thank you, John.
Yes. So that's it's also in Singapore at the same time, and Auckland and all that as well. But anyway, for us guys here in Perth, it's 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday, the 14th.
It's in April, is it?
Or March
March the
14th on Friday. Okay, so what's this one here? Oh, no, it's a different one. Yeah, no, so 8 a.m. Yeah, 14th of March on Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Great, good point. Because the official Embarcadero one is sometime after today and before that one, I think.
Oh, okay.
But it'll be probably like 2 o'clock in the morning or midnight or something. For the 12.3 release of 12 point. Yeah, there'll be 12.3.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. That's a fantastic point.
Yep, good stuff.
Okay, so I'm being highly imaginative and I've created a Hello World program. So yeah, let's keep it neat.
Oh, we saw that.
So there, for example, I'll save that. Actually, just save the entire project, please. Save the project as.
While we're mentioning things coming up, I'll also say ADUG Symposium website will be up pretty soon, very, very soon, if Jeff is here. 9th of May, 9th of May, speakers will be Marco Cantu, Marco Herza from GDK, both talking about the history of sort of Pascal, the language, and like Borland and so, the company. People in Melbourne who will be talking about commercial level testing of some application. Richard King, I think that is, who features on Stack Overflow Delphi questions from Longback. And Primoz Gabrielic is going to talk about Spring4D in a performance-related sense, I think. Maybe spring collections, I think. Yes, you are now returning to your regularly scheduled program.
So, hey, Scott, would you be able to just clone this little hello world? It is located here, and then you can make some changes for me. I haven't checked this in yet, but I'll be doing that in a moment. If you just clone it, so I'll just show here what that looks like in a Git. In Fork in a Git UI, and then we can make some changes that clash. So I have now created inside this Git demo. I've created a hello world here, and in hello world it just looks like this. Hello world, highly imaginative, as you can see, and I'm done with that. I tend to close these things, but yeah. So now that's all done, I go to, in this case, Fork, and I say, look, I'm in the main branch. There are some local changes, 5 local changes. Now, because of the git ignore, we're not seeing all these binary files, the DCUs and stuff that have been compiled. They're quite nicely ignored. We don't see the debug, the history, that's all hidden. So, yep, we want these. So we stage these files and we say created hello world project, right? And we commit those files. Now we've committed them. They're only local. So if we look here, this only, you see this blue dot, this is for Fork. This is how a different client, different user interfaces will show differently. But you see how origin main here, that has this little Git icon here. That says that that's on the server. That's what the server knows. So if we go to here and we look at the server and it says, this is all it knows. I'm going to refresh this. That's all it knows about, the git ignore file and the license file, because we haven't pushed this to the server yet. So once I push this, then I'm pushing the branch main onto this one here, and I go push that. and it all writes it up. So that is now on the server, up on GitHub. And if I refresh this now, there it is. So now we can see there's a hello world structure inside this one here. So Scott, shall we make some conflicting changes? Maybe a branch or something like that. What do you reckon? Suggestions? We don't need to do a branch. This is actually another thing I was going to talk about as well. Because we have good practices here.
Or
Sorry?
or, Scott, was that me, Scott, or Scott Hollows?
You, Scott.
I don't know that I have access to that repository.
Well, yes, it's a public one. It's if you want to, you don't have to. We can,
Right.
but yeah.
Well,
Let's see if I
This is
can-
it, yeah.
there's
see if I can grab
ways of a couple of different ways of using GitHub as well, because you can give permission to the repository to a user, and then the other way that often is done is people clone the repository into a their own organizational user. You can either create a branch or and then make your changes, and then you can do a pull request on GitHub,
Yep.
and then you can approve it in the repository.
I haven't got there. I'm actually jumping ahead of myself when it comes to actually showing stuff. So I should, I suppose, finish the talk and then show stuff, and then you guys can ask which things that you want help shown. That's a good
Peter,
point.
I need the URL for that repository.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yep.
So that's,
GitHub.com.
yeah.
And then it's ADUG-Perth.
Is capitalization a thing?
I don't know. It shouldn't be because it's a URL. And then it's
And
a
then
Git
git
demo.
demo.
Yeah.
And local path. I'm going to choose.
So the other thing is you can just create a repository locally. And the way you create a repository locally, say with fork, is you init in your repository, you say where you want it to go, and it creates one locally. Now, doing this locally is exactly the same thing as what GitHub just did just now when I created on GitHub. It's the same thing. It's just I'm going through a web interface because I'm talking to a computer that's somewhere in the cloud. But if I create one here, it is just as much as the original repository as the one up there. The nice thing about doing it with something like GitHub is we have a nice little git ignore file and things like that. We have those little initializations. Okay, so good practices. We have many small changes are much better than fewer large changes, small atomic changes. And when you do local commits, that's just small changes for yourself. For example, if you have a branch and you're just making changes in your branch, then you stage and review the files. And I put the review in italics because you want to review. And that's what we did just now. We went here, we saw there were five file changes, and we'll just make some more. We'll open this one. We'll make some change. I'm going to open up. And then looking rock, quite pretty sandstone. Anyway, it's ready for us to studio thingy to start up. Okay, so I'll add something else here. I don't know. An edit box, for example. T-edit, there you go. I'll just add a T-edit.
It did not work.
And what's not working? You didn't clone?
Yeah, it didn't clone. I must have got the URL wrong.
Okay.
add clone repository. Maybe I need to put in the full URL.
Can you see it there online now?
github.com /ADUG dash /git demo. And maybe I need to put the, is it CPS?
No extensions, just that. Just go to the page.
Oh, well, that's what I tried and it failed.
That's curious because this is supposed to be public.
We don't have right access, so I just pushed through it here.
You just pushed, so there's a nice little change there. Created hello. Oh, that's well. Okay, I
Yeah,
misspelled that.
it says github.com /ADUG-Perth /git demo does not exist. Would you like to retry cloning?
What? It's there. I didn't see it. Thank you. Why aren't you working? Okay. So what happens if I go into my VM? What's that? Yes, I will in a moment. I'm just going to see first whether I can get this on another computer. This being another computer. Could it be that
I just
you need-
pasted the link in the chat.
Yeah. Is it
That definitely
HTTPS?
works. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I've made it actually, yeah, I'll save this change here. I've made a little change, made an edit box, and that's good because now when we go in here, if I have a look here at main and I do a fetch, and now this is okay, no, one thing at a time, one thing at a time, one thing at a time. A
That
local.
that is so annoying. I can get to the web page, but using what is it, Git desktop, it's not working.
Right.
GitHub desktop is failing. And yet I type in exactly what you wrote or what I wrote in there, and it goes straight to the web page. It's right there.
Right. Okay.
So GitHub's the client's having a bit of a hard time.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Well, Paul has made some changes, so we'll have a look at those. But first, I'll do like just talk about the local commit, stage and review files. So we actually look at the files. Was that? Is that the? Oh, it's the charger. Okay, it's fine. And make sure you look at them because sometimes you find that there are errors or you want to fix things, spelling mistakes and things like that. And then we stage them and we say edit, say, what did it call it? Edit one. Okay, cool. That's nice. And we commit those files and we have two versions. One of them has been changed. Like this one's local only, and because we haven't synced with the main. Now that we've got those changes, if I do a fetch now, I believe Paul has made a change, so I don't see it.
So I changed my fork. So it said I don't have right access to the repo. So it created a fork for me.
Oh, I need to give you right access, don't I?
So
Yes,
now-
and that's probably what Scott's got the problem with.
And now hopefully you'll get a pull request from me. A sec.
Collaborators and teams.
There was a pull request there.
Is there a pull request there?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I go to pull request, Oh, yes, excellent. Right, why can't I see that in here when I do a fetch?
Because it's different. It's
Hasn't been approved yet.
Hasn't been approved, but it should still be visible.
Yeah.
no. The pull request is a GitHub thing. So once
Yes,
you
yes.
approve it, it'll merge into the
Sure, but I ought to be able to see the unhelpful addition branch in
well,
here.
Is it,
It actually, maybe it's not.
is it talks a different?
No, nothing. Yeah, anyway, no, maybe it's not. Forgotten now. Okay, so we make it, so we're a team anyway. So I'm going to add this one here. I'm going to say a new pull request. And we want to pull in, no, see, that's not available there.
no, you click on it. Click on it.
Curious, this is quite a different process from what I was doing before. Okay.
So if you want to see that branch, you can look at Paul's branch in his. So you go the McGee 69 main branch, and you can pull that into your Git client then.
Right.
If you really want to, or you can just view it on the.
So I suppose that's because this is using a very different process to what we were doing with the 80 or so developers at Immersive Technologies, because then we would always have to create a pull request to say this branch is. So I suppose that's when we're doing branches and then pulling them in. Yes, we were making branches. That's what it was.
You will be needing one repo and not somewhere else. Basically,
Yeah.
in space.
The branches in the same repo as, yeah. So what I was going to say before was when you do a server commit, you want to fetch updates, but that sort of is kind of moot right now because we're fetching from different repos. Whereas at work, we all pushed them into the same repo, and then we had to merge change the different branches into our master branch.
They're still called pull requests?
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then you'd have someone lovely full change. Okay. So we can say that's good, and we can submit the review. I can't really see because that was a comment. I meant to actually.
There's a merge pull request there.
Yeah, the Zoom buttons were in the way. I couldn't see the options, damn it. Anyway, merge pull request.
Can I?
Done. Merged.
I have a story about because I'm currently like a 4-year-old. Oh, okay. Yep, that's for. Thank you. Yeah, I'm about equivalent to a pre-kindergarten Git user, but when I was a beginner, crawling, dribbling instead of walking and dribbling. Compiler Explorer is a website where you can go to use hundreds and hundreds of different compilers and maybe 20 different languages in a web browser and see, put in some code and see what assembly language it turns into.
Mm-hmm.
And some people use it for development, but when you went to Pascal, it only had free Pascal, it automatically put you in a unit. You weren't able to write program begin write line hello world end. You couldn't do that. It just assumed you had to put your stuff in a unit. And I was mildly, gently offended by that and attempted to to look into how to get it fixed. And there's a guy there who's super in the Compiler Explorer community, who's also a big Delphi guy and Free Pascal guy. In the end, I didn't know that in the beginning. But anyway, I submitted a PR, which was useless because I didn't know what I was doing. But I didn't know, so I've got a fork of their repo. Their repo is super busy. And then, like, I kept, actually, this wasn't Compiler Explorer, this was Dev CPP, but same thing. I submitted a pull request, but then kept on changing my repo. And every commit that I make in my repo adds onto the pull request until someone addresses it. And I didn't know that. So I'd made like a one-line change, and then like there were these other things that weren't even meant to go over to the other people. They were just automatically adding on. And then someone says like, boy, idiot, this is what's happening. And I'm like, sorry.
It sounds like getting things to branch.
Yeah, you need to, when you do that stuff, you need to work in a branch and then submit the branch, and don't do any work in that branch until they merge it in.
Oh yeah, well see, I learned that right now.
So, having done that,
It's chilly, and you'll probably have to get some more veggies because they got ads. Cool.
sorry, who what?
Thank you.
So, but you can see the changes here. So this is where I have added. So we're talking about rebasing before. We're now in a situation where I can show that. This is what I was looking for. So I made a change where I added an edit box, right? See that? Here's edit in the FMX. Here's edit in the PAS file. And that's great, but that's based on an old version. And I want to keep this updated. So you can see here that the origin main, that's moved forwards. There are these other really massive changes that have gone on. And I want to incorporate these massive changes because they might affect my new changes here that I've been working on in the meantime. So what I do is I say, well, I'm in this branch here, and actually I should probably call it something like, so I should do new branch, gonna add an edit box. Okay, so that's my branch. All right. And yeah, look, I really want to add build this on top of there. So what I do is do a pull first, I suppose. Anyway, I broke it by doing this, but I can go in here and say I want to rebase, going to add edit box onto there. And so what I do now is, rather than being based off here, I'm just going to cheat. I'm just going to do this. All right. I'm just cheating. Never mind me. Okay. So rather than going to add an edit box being based off an old version of the project, I rebase it on main, and here it is. It is now. We have all these massive changes that happened, and now my branch is now, rather than being based on some old version of the source, it's now based on, in this case, the latest main version of the branch. And of course, branches are branches. It doesn't matter what you call them, main, master, trunk, or some other, release 5, release 6, release 7. They're just branches. Yeah. Universal source of truth would be probably the main branch. Yeah, so that's what rebasing is. Now, sometimes your branch is not just one node, one commit. It could be a whole series of commits. And when doing a rebase, what it does, it goes through each commit at a time and it goes to check to see if any conflicts with your destination. And then if there are, you fix those up, and then applies the next one. If there are, then you fix them up. And you can also do a just trying to remember what it's called here. An interactive rebase, and then you have more control over how that's being rebased. And I think also you can even choose which. So you might have some of your commits that you don't want to add in. Was that?
I just need to take 12 and you definitely need to get things.
Okay.
No, not that in the shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Sure. So I'll just finish it. So yeah, pull requests now. I suppose everyone here knows how to use them. You have your release branches. It's good to have a branch for releases, because what can happen is you continue in development on the main branch. In the meantime, a client says, oh shit, this is broken. You got to fix this now, urgently. You don't want to make a new build with a whole bunch of half finished changes. So what you do is you have your release branch, you fix the bug in the release branch, and you send that out. So they've got the release plus the fix, and that's it. Just that tiny little bit. Then in the main branch, you go and cherry pick that fix. So you go and pick just that one particular change and you pull that into your main branch. So you've got the fix, so you don't lose it. And then when you're ready for the next big release, again, make a branch, or at the very least a tag. And that's what you send the client. And again, if there are any urgent patches they need, you do it just on that branch and cherry pick them into the main. You just keep on doing that process the whole way through. That way you don't give the clients a whole bunch of unfinished, half complete, partially complete, whatever changes that you're working on. So that's a good practice.
And it could be possible that you solve a problem for release one way, but then with more time in the main branch,
You solve it.
handle it differently.
Could be. Yeah, it could be that you do a quick fix, quick and dirty there, solves a problem. I always try to avoid quick and dirty because that tends to cause other problems, just almost always, but yes, you could. And it could also be that the fix you do only makes sense in that version you released, but because you're making these other changes, that may affect what the fix has to actually be. Yeah, so that's true.
Go back there, due to the change, wasn't working, so you had to go back behind it, take it out. Basically, the branch, then start again, different again, yeah.
You can go back and restart your, yes.
So pretty much, so.
Now, there are two philosophies on branches that the experts in my last place particularly were discussing. There's branch seldom and branch often is what I call them. Branch seldom is you push all small changes directly into the main branch. So this is a group of, as I said, approximately 80 developers just putting lots of small changes into the main branch, which I think sounds a bit crazy, but they said it's better when it comes to merging because you have smaller iterations it's being iterated in small steps, small atomic steps. And you only branch for big things such as release versions. The other philosophy is you branch often. I'm going to make a change. I'm going to add a new feature and I'm going to need multiple commits for this new feature. So I'm going to make a branch and I'm going to make my commits. And when I'm done, then I'll add that to the main branch. And there are I wouldn't say one's better than the other. I'd say it's a matter of preference within the team, which they prefer. The second one, where you branch often and have these big, much more frequent branches that have to be merged, mean that you have much bigger risk for conflicts. But on the other hand, you're also adding in complete features or more complete features. other features, blame, statistics, and all the rest of it. And there's no point for investment time because you guys know what this is about.
What I don't think is that, but I want to hear that. Is
Okay.
there something in the dessert sphere that you can or cannot have?
I won't worry about it. Okay, thanks. Nice cool, thanks. And
But we can do that.
so, was there anything that was new to anyone else? Anything new there? Anything you wondering about? Paul wants to know about stashes. No one had anything new? Great, I feel.
Oh no, you've learnt lots new. Thanks very much. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, well, okay, Les, did that actually, do you think you can, do you think you'll be able to use Git at this point?
Well, I don't know that I could use it yet, but I can play around with it. My
Yeah.
question is, can you just make it locally on your local machine without actually having to
Yeah.
and
So,
just manage it there for a while, see how it goes, and
yeah, you can. So you can do init new repository in fork. You do init. So clone is where you clone a pre-existing one. So on another computer, for example, GitHub.
yeah.
Init new repository, we are going to create a new one here, and I say, yep, I want it here. Okay, let's go to. I want to go to. I'll do it. I'm gonna go here, and I say, yep, in here is good, and I want to call it. I presume it works like this. XYZ. I haven't actually done it this way. Okay, so we'll just do that. Okay, that's a good folder, and then. Okay. I think it just created it in. Yeah, that's not quite what I wanted. But yeah, so if I just go and kill this now temporarily.
Just delete the.
No, I don't know if I do because I might actually. That actually might. Was that one I just created now?
Yeah.
11. Yeah, it is too. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. So yeah, that's correct. It's gone. We delete that.
We've got 10 minutes.
Yeah. The other thing you can.
I just in it like this, and I say, okay, you know what? We're going to create a new one. We're going to call it XYZ. Boom. Go into XYZ, select the folder, bam, and there's our new repository called XYZ. And if I go into dev, ADUG, refresh this. Where am I? Dev. Oh, I put it in Batsoft, didn't I? So dev, Batsoft, ADUG. Where the hell did I put it? I put it there. Okay, dev Batsoft. Oh, just dev Batsoft. Okay, yeah. So there's my new repository. So if I just create a file here, I'll say it's document. Okay, there it is. There's my document, and I can see the changes, and I can stage them, and I can commit them, and that's my local project right there. That is inside here. Well, that's where I put it.
And
so.
And I was just going to say, and you can copy that .git folder, and that contains all the commits. So as long as it's it won't have the uncommitted changes, but it will have all the committed changes. So you can actually copy that, and you'll get all the history.
Right. Neat.
Right.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
And you could even well, I'm not sure how it'd work in Fork, but you should be able to add it somewhere.
Well, That's, I mean, normally what you'll do is you'll just clone a repository, right? So
Yeah.
you sort of path
I-
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you clone it, you can put in the local path.
Mm.
So if you had it, I have someone I help that drives me nuts that loves to use USB sticks. So you can have the Git repository on a USB stick, but you can also have another one on the hard drive, and you can
So you can back up onto the USB drive. Yeah.
yeah, and you can push the changes, like instead of pushing them up to GitHub, you can push them to the USB stick.
Yeah.
So,
Yep,
so
that
what
makes
actually
sense.
what actually gets pushed? You only record the incremental changes up into GitHub. So when you make the paths and splits and whatever else and branches and whatever, you're only adding the changes into GitHub. Yeah, I'm sorry, not GitHub, into Git.
Changes, but not. So what Subversion SVN used to do is you would have a sort of original file, and then you'd have the deltas between the files, and it would add a delta, and there was actually sometimes a risk that they could be corrupted.
Yeah.
So if you get one of Git doesn't do that. It has it's the file as is. So the new version of the file, it's a new version of the file. When you compare two files, you're not looking at some tiny little delta that it's comparing two different files, the old version and the new version.
Right. And I noticed you use beyond compare. So using fork, you looked at two positions. Now, does that mean that it's sort of beyond compare is comparing those two positions in your that you've chosen within the structure of fork?
I don't know. I'm not following. Sorry.
Well, you were looking at, and you're saying, what did I change from, say, in your thing there, the added, can't read that quite.
So if I'm looking at something like
Yeah,
like
look,
this, for
say,
example,
tick that, yeah, and tick
this is
them up.
not fork. I said this is fork. This is not
Yeah,
beyond.
that's right. No,
compare.
that's right. Yeah. Oh, I see. So you're looking with this in there. So what were you using beyond compare for it before? Just to double check.
It was for things such as it was the file merging when there are conflicts. I think that's where I used it.
Right. Okay. So if you find conflicts, then off to beyond compare and look all that. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Okay.
So these
I couldn't quite see
merge.
where that sat into it, because you seem to have half of it here and half of it in beyond compare. But I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's just using beyond compare as a bit more of the user interface, but it's
Yeah. No, I learned a lot today. That's good. And you say there's a million other versions of items like fork.
Yes.
You've looked at lots and thought fork's probably the best.
I looked at some of them. There were too many. Listen, where was this? Oh, sorry, I opened the wrong app there. So here, it's come on, open up. Oh, maybe it did already. Okay.
Okay. Vanilla slice.
So you can see here. Yeah, you go pick. It's just considering this is Git SCM. I'm assuming these are pretty much all the valid user interfaces. And some are free, some are not. Kraken, for example, is supposed to be very good, but not free. That's probably why I didn't use it. So fork is sort of, I'd call it donationware. I have paid once, I think, for the previous laptop, and I haven't paid for this one. So sometimes you get a reminder. When I actually have money again, I will pay for it again, because they deserve being paid. But
Expensive? What sort of price are you talking about for?
Sorry?
Is it in the dollars or hundreds of dollars or
60
No, no.
US dollars, I think it is. About
how much?
So,
about 60 US dollars, yeah.
Oh, that's not
yeah.
bad. Yeah.
So we're about to be kicked out. Out of the room, we can continue, but outside the room.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so for example, fork is $60. There's another one here. That one's $100 per user.
Oh, I see. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
These are free,
Oh.
it just depends.
Yeah.
Options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. It just means getting a bit familiar with it. Okay.
Mm.
Thanks for that, Pete. That's really good, man. Mm.
I don't think, I don't know if there was, okay, I hope that's okay.
Yeah, no, good.
Is there anything else I've missed that's actually worth adding?
Stash was the thing that I.
Stash you want to show us?
So we can see that.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thanks everyone. I'll just shut down my laptop, but that one's still going, the phone's still going.
Yeah, that's conveniently, this is actually the meeting. And I'm going to offer my thanks to Peter for turning, once again, you guys have turned my disorganized jumble of a kind of get the meeting started into a awesome and instructive session. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. That's very good.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, you got some things too. Oh, good.
Between
There's a couple of things I didn't buy you because I didn't see where your button was. I thought straight off, looking to find it. It already been here and wiggled it, but I didn't catch that. Oh no, that was mine.
Oh, thanks.
So
between Peter, Scott, Jeff,
Yeah.
Scott H, awesome guys.
Yeah.
Sorry,
thanks.
somebody, and Les. Les told us all about Copilot.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
My question. Oh, sorry. Go on.
you go.
Are you gonna? Is this recorded? Are you gonna put this up?
Yes,
later
recorded.
on?
Yes, recorded.
Excellent,
And I'll
mate.
catch up on my publishing.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was just going to say, talking about just using it locally, you can use it just locally, but it's I find it good to have it on GitHub or something like that because it's a bit of a backup as well.
Yeah.
I currently have a hard drive sitting on my desk here that's well, it's got some stuff that I need to recover, but most of my source code was on GitHub, so I didn't lose any of that. So you just need to make sure you do regular commits.
Yeah.
I totally second that. So Les, I would much rather have projects on GitHub as a sort of ultimate backup and not even worry about doing zips of like local backups. I just wouldn't bother.
Yeah.
Also, GitHub can be private repos.
Yeah. That's what I'd make sure you're making private repos if you're not.
It didn't originally start that way, did it?
No.
There was somebody who did only public and somebody who did only private, and then they relaxed, I think, their considerations.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Alrighty. Is that the meeting?
Could be, mate. Could be.
Finishing early.